Disclaimer, I'm not a licensed electrician. I have had some schooling, so don't take my word for gold. And do not attempt to do your own electricity unless you've had some type of schooling or you know what you're doing. If you kill yourself because you decide to go lick on some wires, that's on you. Welcome back, everybody, to How I Did a Garage. Today I'm going to tell you about what it took for me to install a 400 amp service on my home with a sub panel for my new building I'm building and the other sub panel for the house. What it took, things you need to consider, steps you need to take, document my progress. If you're watching this, you're probably just like me. You're getting a building built or a garage, or maybe you just want to upgrade your service for your electric car because you got to upgrade to 400 amp service if you got an electric car. Contact the electric company. Figure out what type of transformer you're hooked up to, if it's big enough to supply a 400 amp service. Most likely, if you're like me, you do not, and they're gonna have to come out and change out the transformer, and you probably only have 200 amp meter base, so therefore got to upgrade. So the steps I took is I went ahead and I called the electric company, asked them about upgrading the 15 kVA to 25 kVA. My electric company, yours might be a little different. I'm gonna have to run conduit from the pole all the way to the new meter base. With a 400 amp service here in Kentucky, you need to check your local regulations and laws, but it's probably similar or the same. Here you got to have 3-inch conduit. If it sticks up above the ground, and for the 90s has to be scheduled 80, and if it's in the ground it can be scheduled 40. I went ahead and got scheduled 80 just to be safe. It might as well. It costs more money, something to consider if you're on a budget. But before you can actually start digging for that, you need to call your 811 number and figure out if you have any line. Why? Because you might get your internet disconnected like I did when you go to dig out stuff. So they came out and they marked everything. I hand dug it, so the trencher didn't mess it up. It does a big loop around, and I still got a bunch of mess everywhere. Everything's all cluttered around here. When I was digging out for the ground post, which I'll get to in a second, ended up hitting it. Make sure you call 811 and figure out where all your stuff is before you start digging, and make a good plan. I had a plan. It just, sometimes stuff happens. Because you're gonna have to get your electric service to disconnect your power, to run the new power to your new meter. I'm gonna run the house sub panel whenever they disconnect everything. I'm gonna go ahead and get it all wired up, conduit ran. The day of, when they disconnect everything, is when I will tackle doing everything to the house. So for the line going over to the pole to here, I'll show you what my electric company, Warren Electric here in Southern Kentucky, this is what they have and what they want you to go off of. You gotta have 2 8-foot grounding rods, which is 6 feet apart. It has to be 2 feet from your 90. It has to be at least a foot into the ground. And then you gotta have an expansion joint. This has to be 6 inches from your meter base, and from the center where your meter actually goes into your sub panel, or where your meter goes into your meter base, it has to be 5 or 6 inches. Yeah, here it is, 5 or 6 inches to your final grade. And just for your reference, this is what they recommend here in Southern Kentucky, where I'm at in Southern Kentucky. If you're in Iowa, yours might be different. Check your codes. So before I can even start doing this stuff, you gotta get a permit. I think my permit here was about $200. The building permit for the barn, on the other hand, was about 400 and something. But for the electrical side of it was 200, and that gave me the permission to start doing my electricity. So the way it's going to be done is the inspectors are going to come out. They're going to inspect everything before the electric company will hook everything up. But as far as the pipe, you're going to have to get inspected, or at least here in Kentucky, I'm going to have to get it inspected before I fill it back in. And then a foot above grade, you got to have red danger tape like this, just red tape ran on top there. They'll check for that, and then you can fill it back in. And this is what it looks like. I got mine super cheap, Square D off of Amazon, 300 and some odd bucks. But the reason is it did not come with any of the lugs. I still got to buy some more for here. Normally they're going to be about $700 to $1,500 depending on what you get. Then you got your grounding bar, and your grounding bar per your code, but here in Southern Kentucky, once again, which should be just about everywhere. Everywhere I believe goes off of the NEC 2023 guidelines now. Got your wire, which has to be 6 inches below, into your bridge, conduit, clamp to the wall. I did 3 just like in the picture, just because that's what it showed in the picture. It has to be a foot down. Go to one 8-foot grounding rod right here, a foot down, and the wire's gonna be ran a foot too. Which you're gonna have to keep all this open for the inspector to inspect. Over to this one. You're gonna have to have bushings on there. You got your clamp clamping it together, but then you got your bushing so when the wires go through where it don't scrape against this edge and mess anything up. So you gotta have your insulated bushing. So from here, I went ahead and just used the Schedule 80 PVC. Then we got a Siemens 200 breaker right here, which we ain't got no wires for. Why are you chewing on a rose bush? What you doing, boy? He's boy. So I'm gonna print a trencher for 4 hours to do this. Should make light work. And then I'm gonna have to get a lot more conduit and then run the same thing from this panel all the way back to the building that ain't built yet. All right, that's time to get the wire in here. Oh goodness, well, I was wrong. I guess I redone all this because I thought it couldn't be bonded in the sub panel. I thought it could only be bonded in the meter base. Well, I was wrong. The inspector wants it to be bonded at the sub panel right here too. So the original one that I had actually would have worked. Well, here we are. So I'm gonna have to get the green screw, tap that in there, get rid of that open wire right there that was grounded. Got everything wired up. Besides into the main breaker panel in the basement. Tomorrow they're gonna come and disconnect the power from the old meter, wire this up, and then I get to finish up that. Inspector be here tomorrow. We'll figure out if this will work. Wish me luck. I think it was about time for an upgrade. This thing looked pretty wore out. Yeah. They're getting it all done. Getting a new transformer put up there, getting a new pole. So I wanted to get a video of the meter base being all wired up so you can see it, but them guys work pretty quick. They put that, probably can't see it, but they put that pole up and the transformer up pretty quick. They got it done before like 11 o'clock, starting at 8. I think it's pretty quick. So they also gave me the pole and the insulators. I like the little the old school glass insulators. They're pretty neat. And I got a pole to do whatever I want. So the way I did it, I was going to wait to do all this all at once for the sake of time and not going a couple days without electricity. I went ahead and pre-wired this up, ran that pipe over here and had the wire sticking out. The inspector came a couple days before and he inspected the grounding and the wiring that I had done. And he pre-approved it, and I had communication with the electric company, which gave them the okay to hook power up to this. And then I could have this turned off, and after they got the power turned back on or whatever, I could finish wiring up the rest of this because this is the disconnect now. This would act like disconnecting the power to wire up the house. You know, just flip that. So that helped out a lot. And then after that, he came back for a final inspection, which I'll talk about that in a second. In the earlier videos, you probably seen that I had ground wires ran to each panel. Inspector didn't want that in there because it's considered parallel grounds. I thought it could only be, the neutral could only be bonded in the meter base. I don't know, I guess I was wrong, but that's what he wanted. That's what I had to do, so that's what I did. So you got your two hots coming in, the black and red wire. Then you got your neutral into the grounded sub panel here with the green screw connecting it, and The building sub panel is the same way. We'll get to the building side of it here in a second. Something to consider whenever you're doing this, if your house is, your old meter base is as old as mine, is that I was wanting to just tap into this. This is what went into the basement. I took a saw to it, just cut it, and I was gonna unscrew this part, flip it over, run that straight into it. Well, it didn't want to work out. I ended up cracking it, ended up bending it a little bit, so even tried to PB blasted it, that seized together. So I ended up having to get new. Nova, what are you doing, girl? You're in the video. I had to get a new LB. I still have to fill in all that. With the size difference, Nova, girl, I'm trying to do something. You want to come over here causing havoc too? Anyways, like I was saying, I'm going to end up filling that back in. With that being a 2-inch pipe going in there, this being 2.5, I had to get a reducer right there. I really don't like it, so eventually I'm just going to, when I upgrade the old breaker panel in the basement, I'm going to wire it up, get it ready over here, and I'm going to just drop it down to LB into there. But if you got an old LB, something to consider. So with that, later on that day, once I got everything wired up, I was able to turn it back on myself, and then he came back for a final inspection. He went to the basement, he inspected this, inspected the breaker panel in the base. Something I had to do also is it was grounded in there with this. I had to take this off and put a stamp of approval on it, even though I still had electricity. So that covers this side of it. Now, for the building side of it, what I got to do now, I mean, really, without anybody knowing, I could run that to the building way back there and have power. But something the inspector also mentioned to me, which makes sense. The building was to catch fire, especially something electrical. The insurance company might not pay for it because it did not get the stamp of approval from the inspector. I want to have the inspector inspect it so I don't have to worry about none of that. I want my building to be covered, especially you spend that much money, you want it covered. Make another video about from this side of it on back and wiring up the shop, so that'd be a whole separate video. That is upgrading the 200 amp meter base to a 400 amp meter base. Well, that's all I got. If you have any questions, you can ask me and I'll add it into the next video whenever I do the building side of it. I believe I covered everything, but until next time.